YouTube, how you guys doing today? Welcome back to week number 10 of Apple Weekly. Got a number of stories to share with you today, and let's get started. Story number one is in relation to Apple's iAds platform. Adidas have dropped out of the platform, and they have said Steve Jobs is a control freak. A deal worth 10 million US dollars. Apparently, Adidas have tried to get their ad approved 3 times, a creative ad 3 times, and Apple have rejected it. Apple, launched the iAd platform. They wanted to get control of the quality of ads appearing. Still you look at some apps and the ads are totally irrelevant So Apple really wanted to control the whole game, and that's what advertisers are apparently annoyed of. Previous to this, WSJ Wall Street Journal reported that Chanel dropped out of this iAd platform, Adidas being the latest one. So really, Apple need to kind of sit down with these ad agencies and see what on earth is happening, what is going wrong, why are such a big brand dropping it? Because inevitably, if more follow suit, then iAd could be in trouble. But again, these are 2 out of so many of the brands. So it's going to be really interesting to see how or what the numbers at the end of the day or at the end of the year really try to bring out. So look forward to those stats. The second story is absolutely hilarious. It's in relation to the iPhone 4 being launched in China. Now, to me, this story was a bit of a marketing tactic. What happened was Apple relaxed the rules on people buying iPhone 4s. So in the UK and in the US, you can only buy 2 per person, 2 iPhone 4s per person. In China, they had the same rule, but they changed it. So you can buy as many iPhones as you can. So as you can see from the left-hand side, people were going in and buying boxes, filling the shopping bags if they're filling, crisps or candy in a bag. So inevitably, stores were, getting really busy because people were selling them on to other people. There was a good £200-300 markup on every single phone. So you can imagine, why wouldn't you do it? Because, there's a lot of money in it, easy money. And stores were getting, people were fighting in stores. There were punches flying, kicks flying, slippers, and anything you can think of. Macs were flying. So they called in the police in the specific Beijing Apple store, and as you can see from that image, as insane. There's about 15 people crowded around one computer to activate their phone. So they called in the police. They closed the store for a few hours, and they brought the same rules back in. And plus, when the store reopened, you not only had to open the phone, but you had to activate it, and it went back to the 2 per person. Absolutely insane. And to me, knowing the population of China, how could you not know that is going to happen? Even before the iPhone 4 was launched, prices were ridiculous for iPhone 4s. People were still buying them. They were still selling like hotcakes. And why do that when you've got the same rule in the US and the UK? So I'm thinking there's something to do with marketing or so on. But leave your thoughts down below if you did get a punch thrown in at yourself in China. That would be pretty damn awesome if you could leave some comment like that. This third story is in relation to the iMacs, and specifically touch-based iMacs, which I find a bit insane, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, it's funny because last year, about the start of this year, there were reports that a new 22-inch iMac was going to be released. Never happened. 2 months down the line, there was another rumour that there will be a new iMac with iOS and OS 10 on the same system. That never happened. There was apparently going to be a special event for that. That never took place. Well, according to me anyway. And now this patent, as you can see, has emerged, and it pretty much shows a touch-based iMac. Now, here's a thing where I still can't get to grips with is my current iMac. I would hate to put my hand even on it, because you're sitting on a screen and you don't want to be doing that. I'd rather be relaxed, my arms on the desk and typing away and so on. I don't want to be touching the screen. The iMac screen already gets the moment you start to clean it, if you put your thumb on it, you can clearly see your thumb on it, and it can get a bit dirty. But knowing Apple, they would probably put better screens inside. That said, the iPad screen, that can get smudgy as well. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't know where a touch-based iMac would really fit in. I can see them fit in retail, retail businesses. That would probably benefit them. But then again, how many retail stores do you know that use a Mac in the first place? Plus, I don't think there's a big enough market just for retail, so I don't see them doing it specifically for retailers. But then again, Apple are targeting or starting to target small businesses and medium enterprises and so on. Secondly, I think it's probably going to be beneficial for iOS developers. Having the integration between OS X and iOS and having multi-touch support on an iMac screen, that could perhaps make sense. But I still don't see myself as a consumer, like, you know, not an iOS developer, not a retailer, how it's going to benefit me. So, you know, Apple tend to, what they do is they tend to sort of see, because, you know, touch-based computers already exist. McDonald's, or, you know, you go buy a ticket for a train, they're using touch-based stuff. So Apple don't just bring out stuff, the same technology that's there. They usually see it and say, hey, you know, there's a flaw in here, this needs to be fixed, and then they offer a better experience. So it's going to be really interesting to what to do with the iMacs. I don't see there's going to be any iMacs updates this year because they just updated them. Next year is probably going to be your best bet, and again, you know, interesting times ahead for the iMac. While I'm on the subject of iMacs, the next version of Final Cut Studio has suffered significant setbacks. It was apparently, or according to a few sites, meant to be released this year, but that's not going to happen because it's going to be released next year now. Due to, you know, Apple moving the teams around, shifting teams around, what's basically happened is they've moved the people who were working on Final Cut Studio over to iOS. Makes business sense. iOS is doing so well, they're selling so much. It makes sense to be working on that platform at the moment. But that's not to say, you know, Final Cut Studio isn't being used. It's still being used a lot. A lot of professionals use it. A lot of studios, video makers, and so on. A lot of professionals that you don't see on a day-to-day basis, but behind the scenes, that is, you know, that's their bread and butter. So to sort of, you know, not cater for them or to delay them, that is a bit of a disappointment. And, you know, Apple really should have had the right people, right place, you know, at the right place at the right time, rather than saying, okay, we're going to take these bunch of people, move them here, and Final Cut can, you know, be kept quiet for now, and we'll deal with it later on once we've done something with iOS. That's not the right thing to do. And it's going to be very interesting to see what is going to happen this month, because this is the month where usually the Mac gets a refresh, new products are launched, iWork, iLife, perhaps new MacBook Airs which are due, and if anything does happen with, you know, Final Cut Studio. So if you are waiting for Final Cut Studio, you know, leave your comments below. The next story is on, of course, Apple TV, the 2010 edition. They are starting to arrive, and most of you probably have, who placed an order, of course, received theirs. But the most interesting thing about this new Apple TV is, number one, it's been jailbroken already. That's a Guinness World Record set even before the friggin' thing's arrived. People in the UK, like myself, won't receive ours till Monday of this week. But the most crucial thing coming out of this is it's been teared apart, and companies like iFixit have, you know, published a few things that are very interesting. It's got an 8 GB flash memory, which is quite cool because Apple really kept silent on this. You know, there was more emphasis placed on streaming stuff, streaming music, movies, and so on. There was nothing about storage. So it's got 8 GB flash storage, which could be very interesting in the next couple of months should Apple, you know, want to add an app store. It's also got 256 megabytes of RAM, similar to what's found on the iPad and iPod Touch. Of course, lower than what's on the iPhone 4, which is 512 megs. And it's got the same in-house Apple processor, the A4 chipset. There's also an empty slot right next to the 8 GB flash storage, which is kind of interesting. You know, should Apple, you know, were they offering perhaps more? Was this like, you know, a last-minute decision where they said, hey, cut the storage off? Or could this just be you can upgrade it at a later stage? Should the App Store become available eventually? So interesting times ahead for Apple TV. And if you have got your TV yet, you know, leave your comments as to what you think about it, how you finding it, you know, what do you like about it, what do you not like about it. So this last story is in relation to iPad 4.2 Beta 2, which was released this week. A very good finding. Tethering support. You're like, what on earth is tethering? Basically, you can hook up your iPad 3G version to your MacBook and use the internet on your MacBook. Isn't that cool? Previous to this, Apple done something very similar where you can hook your iPhone to your MacBook, but there was a charge you have to pay for that. Isn't that ridiculous? So, good times. If they charge for it, it's going to be a complete fail. If they don't charge for it, especially if you've got an iPhone and you've got an iPad 3G, and on top of that you're going to have to pay more fees. That's ridiculous. But it's going to be very cool if indeed it is free, and I might just go out and get an iPad 3G if that ever happens. But that's all the stories for this week, guys. What do you think? Any of the stories? Leave your comments below as to any story that you didn't like, or your general thoughts or feelings about it. Remember, you can join me on iGlaswegian.com, twitter.com/i6glasswegian, facebook.com/iGlaswegian. If you could hit anywhere on the screen, that would be amazing. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week. Cheers.